Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is the game between the great Mikhail Tal, playing on the white end, and his trainer, Alexander Koblents. This was a training game played in 1957. This is regarded as a highly complex masterpiece, and is one that I will only be scratching the surface with when I visit a few of the complex variations. So, the magician from Riga kicks off this game with e4, Sicilian defense on board, open Sicilian. What variation? Richter-Rauzer Attack. And we have a case of opposite sides castling in this one. A few things to note in position types of this sort. Think time, think piece activity, think initiative. These are a few of the factors that should, in most cases, precede material. If you experience any anxiety at the thought of maybe being down a pawn or two or piece in order to pursue an attack against the enemy king, maybe this is a position type that's not for you. Maybe. Knight b3 avoids the minor piece exchange, and the majors can now see some. Queen b6, f3, preparing a kingside attack, pawn storm. Black is doing similar. g4, sure enough. Rook to d8, prepping a central expansion. White wants g5, so the bishop gets out of the way with a punch. Queen c7, h4, b5. The knight is kicked back, and white continues to press, immediately engaging with black's pawns. Not prepping g6 with first h5. This is an instructive pawn sacrifice. This speeds up the opening up of the position. White is there, engaging first. What does white get? H takes g, h5, chop, chop. White's down a pawn. But white has a completely open h-file to work with. This is white's avenue into the black position. The major pieces will operate very well along the h-file now. Knight f6. The rook comes all the way back. Sometimes you would want to keep open that h1 square for the doubling of the rooks, but not here. White would like something a bit more timely, let's say, namely to have the queen act as the leader in this battery, looking for mates on h8. Black reacts in the center. This is a typical idea, meeting a flank attack with a strike in the center. d5 not only prevents this queen h2 idea, but is looking to spark a chain reaction of exchanges. This would detract white from pursuing this kingside attack. White has no interest in having the center open up, and so plays e5. This is giving away yet another pawn to ensure that the d-file does not open up. Black takes it with the knight. If black was excited about losing, they would take with the queen, and that's going to hurt. So knight takes e5. The knight's thrown into a pin. That's broken straight away. Queen to h2. Mate in one threat. Black bolts, looking for a safe haven on e7. Note that black should not try to get clever here with the move knight to d3. If the knight is captured, yes, this is going to hurt Team White. But white has another option. If knight d3 is played, king b1, and it's white who gets the last laugh. Preparing still this mate threat, and you're ready to take the bishop, and only then the knight. So in the game, after queen to h2, it's king to f8. Queen to h8 follows, and black doesn't react in the best way here. In fact, queen to h8 is not considered best, but in a complex position, there will be ups and downs, and we do experience a little bit of that here. Queen h8 is now met with knight to g8. Black does better to play to e7, counterpunch against the queen, and she would just have to fall back somewhere along the h-file. There would be no worry if the black king went to e7. There would be no worry of queen takes pawn because of rook to g8, and this similar tactic would now be present with bishop takes bishop and the queen is struck at from a different angle. That's a painful fork. So, knight g8 is played. Rook to h7. Queen on the 8th rank, rook on the 7th rank. White is kind of going all in with that white queen. You know, this king, if he's ever calling for help, you know, that queen is just not going to be around to help out for defense. She's all in with this attack. And right now, g7 struck at. Only one way to defend. The f-pawn has to get out of the way. So f5 it is. Bishop h6. Yeah, that rook wasn't just attacking the pawn, but pinning the pawn. So what's white doing with bishop h6? Attacking the pinned pawn. Rook to d7 is there as defense. And how to get another piece attacking g7. It's defended 3 times, it's attacked 3 times. How to add a 4th attacker? If only the rook can jump over the bishop. Bishop takes b5. Okay, this bishop isn't just making a calm little move like, oh, I'll just go here and then here next. No, the bishop is coming out with authority. Snipping a pawn, throwing a punch at the rook, throwing another white piece in black's house. Yeah, now rook g1 is right around the corner. And yeah, g7 is ready to collapse here. On pawn takes bishop, rook to g1, and this is collapsing. Pawn takes bishop is already a mate in 1 with rook takes. And if the rook plays up here to defend, knight takes pawn. And eventually, the queen, one of the major pieces, will be pulled away from the defense of g7. That knight on b5 would be striking at everything. So, what does black do? Rook to f7. This is where there are some interesting variations, very complex variations, and this is one that is worth noting for sure. The game move was rook to f7. However, this queen has no great moves, right? You can't take the knight, you can't take here with the queen successfully. Suppose the knight went to g6, striking at the queen. What would white have in reply to that? Knight to d4 would follow, saying, you take my queen, I'm going to take your pawn, and soon take your queen. Okay, black could then say, well, hang on, I'll go here first. But then there's this move, bishop takes g7, rook takes g7, and a star move, a beautiful interference move, one of the most beautiful interference moves I've seen, and that is bishop to d7. And this is interfering with black's defense of e6, and also the coordination between queen and rook. On rook takes bishop, that's going to hurt. On bishop takes bishop, that's going to hurt. And on queen takes bishop, this is still going to hurt. Queen takes knight, queen takes rook. Okay, this isn't winning, this is still messy, but the attack continues here. Just a couple of the variations that may spring about if knight to g6 was played in this position. What did we have at this point? We had rook to f7, rook to g1, and yeah, it's a bit difficult to defend against that g7 point. What's played here? We have now the major pieces. Look at all this attention placed on the g7 square. What follows? Knight to d4. White needs to bring some more pieces into the attack. If ever pawn takes bishop, this knight springs into play, and soon there's going to be knight takes bishop. And after the recapture, the queen is pulled away from defense of g7. What follows here? Black is trying to interfere with this pressure against g7. Note, again, you still can't capture here because of, it's to mate in 2. Boom. And that's going to do it. So knight to g4 is played. Pawn takes knight, so some pressure for the moment is released on g7. Bishop to e5 is now there, looking to defend, and there's some punches being thrown. Knight c6. It's like Tal treats his pieces as if they're pawns, in the sense that like he never even moves backwards. Everything is like forward, 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 forward. Look at all of these pieces that are in Black's house. Not a single one of Black's pieces are in White's house. Impressive. After knight to c6, we have bishop takes c3. And bishop to e3 is looking to sneak into the c5 square. That's shut down with d4. And now we have rook to h1. Do you see the threat? The threat here is to sacrifice the queen. Queen takes knight, just as an example. Pawn takes bishop would be met with queen takes knight, and that's the ball game. So that's the threat after we have a tripling up on the h file. The game follows with rook to d7, and now bishop to g5. This isn't best. This is one of the last variations I'd like to touch on. Best is considered g takes f, looking to just chip away at the e6 pawn, make this guy flinch one way or the other, or maybe capture him. If pawn takes bishop, this pawn is super menacing, and there's that White is renewing this threat of capturing the knight and then giving mate on h8. And one other note is if they capture like this, there's then bishop to c4, or in fact you could take the knight first and then go into c4 with mate soon thereafter. In the game, however, we did not see g takes f, instead bishop to g5. Finally, that bishop is captured. And now we have another piece. There's like this infatuation with that h6 square, it seems. Every one of White's pieces wants to get to h6 one way or the other. First the bishop and now the rook, preparing a lateral move, rook to f6. It's just amazing to see that now every single one of White's pieces are in Black's camp. The follow-up here is d3, and this is now completely winning for Team White. There was one amazing way out for Black in this position instead of the move d3. And this is the last variation to note. Black could actually get away with taking the knight, allowing rook to f6, bishop h6, rook g7, chop, chop, check, and after rook takes rook, Black can get away with an eventual perpetual check. It's a really stunning variation where the queen is caught in the corner, the Black king is in the center, no way to get at him further in a timely way, and yeah, right around the corner there will soon be queen e1, queen c3, with a perpetual check. That would be Black's way out from this position, to scoop up the knight. Doesn't go for it in the game, instead d3. What follows is pawn takes bishop, d2, check, king d1. Just hiding behind that pawn. There's no Black piece that can kick him away. Queen takes knight, and now Black crashes through. Rook f6 with check. Rook f7. The rook's now in a pin, and because of it, g7 is no longer defended directly. Queen g7, and Black already throws in the towel. It's already a mate in 9 from this position. What else to do? If you capture the rook, there's bishop to h6, rook g7, and yeah, this is going to be very painful. A similar idea in the variation I showed where there was a draw. There's not a draw here, though. because of this line with the queen now looking to sweep into one of these two squares. And yeah, the king is safe for just a move, and that's all white needs, is just one move. And the white king is safe, and the black king is far from safe. So in the game, how this did finish was rook to f7 and queen to g7, and black resigns. There's nothing to do. If king to a8, we would have rook takes f7, and there is one check, but the king can always weasel away and find safety for at least one move on b2. And yeah, first we had a tripling up on the h-file, and now we have 3 wild pigs here on the 7th. That's going to not end well for Team Black. But that's as far as it went. After queen to g7, black ends up resigning in this one. And yeah, what a crazy, complex masterpiece of a game this was. So anyhow, as usual, feel free to leave any feedback to this in the comment section below. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.